Hi everyone, Joe March here, and today I'd like to talk about a key concept that's important on any path toward self-betterment. That concept is responsibility. While it's not the sexiest concept that exists, it exists across different disciplines, whether they be occult or whether they be mundane. The idea that you are responsible for your own decisions. I think this gets confused in some spiritual circles into making people think that they're responsible for everything that happens in their life, and that's not what I'm trying to get at. I don't believe that we're responsible for every bad thing that happens to us, but you are responsible for the decisions you make and the way that you respond to things like that. If you want to be someone that moves towards self-betterment, you have to accept responsibility for moving yourself towards self-betterment. Yes, there will be obstacles that get in your way. Yes, there will be things that are outside of your control that cause you to have to work harder. But deciding to work harder is the responsibility you have in order to overcome those obstacles. Being responsible for the decisions you make is not just about trying to think through decisions and make the right decisions, it's also about being responsible for the outcomes of any decisions you make. If you make a decision and it causes some kind of negative outcome, you need to take responsibility for that and work toward improving it. If you make a decision and it moves toward a positive outcome, that's a win for you. It's a lesson of how to continue to do things that move you in the right direction. The overall goal is to be better each day than you were the day before, to continue moving toward a better self, a truer self, a self that feels more free, more fulfilled. All of this requires you to take responsibility for your actions, otherwise you'll always feel like everything's happening to you and you have no control. Meanwhile, do not get locked into that view that you're responsible for absolutely everything in your life. Some things happen to you that you have no control of. Accepting that there are things outside of your control is also the responsible thing to do. You just have to balance the two. You have to accept that there are some things you can't control and accept that there are some things you must control, and use these two things together to be responsible for that which you can control in your life. Being responsible for your decisions is also being responsible to yourself and telling yourself the truth. If you lie to yourself, then you're never going to move forward. You have to constantly re-examine your own thoughts and see, oh, am I believing this because of some delusional thinking that makes me feel better, or do I believe this because this is true? Sometimes the answer doesn't matter, but there's a responsibility to the self to re-examine this from time to time. Don't let yourself get too caught up in it and spiral into a what is real, what is meaning argument. Just be responsible for keeping yourself on track. If you see a continuous pattern where you're making the wrong decision again and again, then you need to try to unravel that and figure out what's causing it. You have the responsibility to yourself to find that truth. The best way to notice this is to see how you're projecting. If there's a certain thing you keep noticing in other people, you say, these people don't understand this one key obvious thing. What is their problem? A lot of times it's something that you're not noticing about yourself as well. And noticing that this irritating thing from the outside world is actually something internal can help you to overcome this problem. Now, this concept got more interesting to me recently when I had another conversation with the teacher. The teacher said to me that she is always available to me at all times and available to everyone. The only difference between whether I can hear her or not is whether I'm open to hearing her. In other words, it's my responsibility to listen to this other voice, to this other thing. It's also my responsibility to keep from letting whatever other voice I want to hear be the voice instead, to actually keep myself from trying to change anything that's being said into what I want to hear. And in this way, if I accept any lessons from the teacher, then those lessons are also my responsibility. Anything that happens as a result of me accepting moving forward in a lesson is my responsibility to take care of. I cannot blame the teacher, I cannot blame the other people involved in the lesson for the lesson. The lesson is the lesson, and I chose to take it. It's my understanding, at least if I'm to just believe the teacher on what she says, that this is how it works. We can choose not to learn a lesson. We can choose to halt our progress if we want. We have to decide to move forward, even though that may be a subconscious decision. And so we are responsible for moving forward in this lesson plan. And we are responsible for hearing the teacher and for our reactions to the teacher and to the lesson. We're also responsible if the teacher says something that we need to not listen to. In other words, the teacher may actually test you to see if you'll listen to absolutely anything, which is also a bad thing. You need to rely on your own self. You need to be responsible for your own decisions and not go outside of your comfort zone if that's something that matters to you. The lessons will happen one way or another. You shouldn't just do absolutely everything you're told. So at the end of the day, if you hear something like the teacher and you listen to the lessons of the teacher, you're responsible for those outcomes. Whether or not the teacher is real, that's for you to decide. But deciding to listen to it does not take you off the hook for anything that you decide to do. Accepting responsibility is also being true to your word. So if you say, I'm going to do something, then that something is something that you now have to do. You are responsible to actually see that through to the end. This doesn't have to be some kind of a magic pact or some kind of a deal with an entity or something like that. Anything that you agree to do, you do to the best of your ability. If you're unable to accomplish it, then you fess up to it. You go to whoever it is you said you were going to get the thing accomplished and say, I couldn't get it done for these reasons, or I would like to do this to help mitigate that, or something. You need to own up to your own responsibilities. Living this way, whether you believe in any of the occult stuff or not, is going to help you to live a better life, it's going to help you to be more fulfilled, and it's going to leave less baggage in your subconscious. It's also going to be a better way of knowing yourself and knowing your own limits. Now, what about something like meditation? That's discipline, not necessarily responsibility. If you make a promise to do meditation a certain number of times a week or whatever, then you might be responsible for doing that. But if you don't make this agreement to someone, it's really just your own self-discipline, deciding to do it or not. Don't let yourself get beat up about wanting to do something on a grand scale and not quite accomplishing all of that. That's more goals and decision-making than it is responsibilities. Responsibilities are things that you need to accomplish, that you've agreed to accomplish, usually for someone else or for the betterment of the self, that if you don't accomplish, there's no workaround. For example, I have a responsibility to my family to work and make them money. That's part of why I'm in the middle of a job search. That's why I'm working toward getting a good job so that I can pay for my family. Having the good job is not just about survival. It's also about helping to support that family because I have a responsibility to them. If I didn't get a job or I didn't have a means of income, I would not be able to accomplish that responsibility. Meanwhile, if I skip meditating for one day, that's just something I wanted to do. It's not the same thing. I'm not saying that it's good to be undisciplined. Being disciplined also is a good thing for progression, but it's not to the same extent. It's not what we're talking about here. The best way to keep from having too many responsibilities that you can't control is to not claim that you're going to do something that you're not going to do. Be honest with your language. And I guess a lot of it comes down to being honest, period. Being honest with yourself, being honest with your language, being honest with others, being open about when you make mistakes. All of this falls into this responsibility sphere. But again, don't fall for the trick that you are responsible for everything that's ever happened to you. That is not true. There are things outside of your control that affect you. You are responsible to how you react to that. You are responsible to how you allow that to continue to affect you. And if you need to go and get help to move past problems, you're responsible for reaching out for that help. But you are not responsible for whatever action actually took place. You're not the one who did the horrible deed, or whatever it may be, or who was born into a certain circumstance. Those are not things that fall on you as responsibilities. Those are circumstances beyond your control. That said, don't use them as an excuse to let go of responsibilities that you should be handling yourself. I want to thank my circle of magi for watching. I want to thank everyone else out there who's watching as well. And until next time, safe travels.